Good morning, everybody. Mike Naso here from IPR365.com and PodWeather.com with the latest on dangerous Hurricane Irene this hour as it continues to intensify and move into the Bahamas. You can see Irene there on the satellite looking very impressive, a very well organized major hurricane, the first major hurricane of the 2011 Atlantic hurricane season. And you can see the eye making landfall now on Crooked Island in the central Bahamas, and it's heading towards the northern and northeastern Bahamas as it will make that turn. It already has moved northwest now. We will see that turn in north-northwest and north over the next, say, day and a half or so, and then see a potential threat to the North Carolina coastline, the Outer Banks. Obviously, when you're dealing with something this dangerous, that's only expected to be larger and even more powerful, a Category 4 hurricane, then you're going to have to worry about the threat of a landfall, although that is becoming increasingly unlikely, at least for North Carolina, and even somewhat unlikely for New England if it continues to trend east, but we haven't seen any evidence that it is not going to hit New England, at least not at this point in time, not a lot of it. Here's the latest as of 11 a.m. Eastern. It was at 22.4 north, 73.9 west, and remember how the other day we were watching latitude. It was all about latitude, watching this number. How high could it get to avoid Hispaniola? Well, it avoided it. It did not make landfall at all. It didn't even really scrape the coast, move north of it. Now the key is longitude, because if it gets towards, say, 78 west, and it's still got a northwesterly component to its track, the increased threat will be towards the North Carolina and Mid-Atlantic states. However, if it continues to bend more and more north and then northeast, there's a chance that the eye wall itself could actually miss Cape Hatteras, which means all four of these states go without landfalls or direct impacts. And then the only threat then would be, well, would it go to Long Island? Would it go towards Rhode Island? Would it go to Massachusetts, Maine, Nova Scotia? And that's an entirely different type of system. We're talking about, by that time, a very large and powerful, but still broad Category 1 or 2 hurricane. Nothing like the tight little monster is going to be down here. It's like two different types of storms when you're dealing with these pesky New England wannabes. And that's what we're going to have to wait and see with Irene, what exactly happens. 115 miles an hour gusting to 140. Again, northwest at 11 to 12 miles an hour. Pressure about 956. It might undergo an eye wall replacement cycle, so fluctuations are expected. You can see the wind field is pretty decent with it, and it's only going to get larger. Obviously, Crooked Island now directly under hurricane force winds. Not good at all. Here's the model guidance, by the way, now in better agreement on the continued northwest track, then north-northwest, then north, and then north-northeast, and then finally northeast. But when that turn occurs will be critical. You can see the consensus is right with the hurricane center, with taking it just towards Cape Hatteras or just offshore, but then there is uncertainty further north as to whether we could actually see it hit Cape Hatteras and then make a landfall in New Jersey, like the GFDL shows, or if it's going to head further east and avoid land altogether. Of course, if it does that, a lot of people will think, hey, next time it happens, we may be more complacent, and you don't want that to happen. Even if it doesn't hit you, be thankful. Don't be complacent for the next time one comes. You can see the current motion, if continued, would take it towards South Florida still, but it is expected to continue to start to bend, and that does appear to be what Irene is doing. Here's the latest zoomed visible, and you can clearly see a beautiful major hurricane making landfall now over Crooked Island in the central Bahamas. There's the eye right there. Anybody in this eye wall is experiencing winds 100 miles an hour, 115, higher gusts, very, very high storm surges, especially here on the north side of the island and the northeast side where that flow is onshore. And of course, high storm surges here further to the east in the other islands. And as it continues to push, what's next? Well, we're talking about Cat Island, Eleuthera, areas further west. It's going to be a very nasty night as this roars through the Bahamas. And keep in mind, we're focused on the East Coast, but do not forget about these folks. These folks are dealing with the real hurricane here. Now, if we have a large, elongated, wet, frothy, green foam, New Jersey style cattail blown in the wind type storm up north, that's going to cause a lot of problems. But there is a big difference between that and a tightly coiled major hurricane roaring through the Bahamas. We can't forget that. You can see that even better on the Cuban radar showing up there. Look at that. You can see the eye wall directly over the island now. So very dangerous storm there. Another view of it here on the water vapor imagery as we see it continue to pool right on up towards the west-northwest and then bump northwest there at the end. And if it were to continue that, we'd be talking about it roaring up most of the Bahamas, or at least the spine of the Bahamas, before taking that turn on off towards the north. Upper level winds are going to be favorable as the system continues to look better organized, and so strengthening to a Category 4 is expected, weakening anywhere between a Category 4, 3, 2, 1 as it heads north. So if it were to take more of a western track, it'd be much stronger. If it took more of an eastern track, it'd be much weaker. Somewhere between the two, we're probably not looking, if it does make landfall, at a major hurricane, probably a Category 1 or 2, probably a 1. But if it got strong enough and kept its power, we've seen Category 3 storms hit Long Island before. Probably the most infamous was in 1938. So we're going to watch that very carefully. I did want to touch on Invest 90L. Some of the models, the ship's model does make it a hurricane. If it does become one, it'd be Jose. The models keep it generally out at sea, at least for the next 5 days or so. They don't really know what to do with it. And so it's kind of frazzled looking models, taking it every which way. The ensembles, some taking it back south. Current motion, though, is just off towards the west-northwest, which would keep it generally on a track like that before any eventual turns would occur. Nonetheless, it could become our next named storm, which would be, as I mentioned, Jose. You can see the Invest there. Not looking all that well organized other than the deep convection, but no real signs of a spin yet. But it's getting there, and there is a medium chance for development right now. But the main focus will be on Hurricane Irene. We'll continue to watch it. Those of you in the Bahamas, you're getting pounded right now by this very dangerous major hurricane, and we will continue to watch it here at IPR as Irene pulls through the Bahamas and then further north for a potential landfall anywhere from North Carolina to Nova Scotia, including New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Maine, with a hurricane in August. It happens, but it is rare. I'm Mike Naso from IPR. I'll see you next time.